They had already warned us. Never stay up late during Holy Week, but we didn't listen. We stayed up late at Grandma's house when in the middle of the night, we heard something. Someone was walking down the hallway that led to our room. The footsteps weren't Grandma's. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being ready to listen to the following stories. We begin with a warning for the upcoming Holy Week. Some may have heard this, others may not have. But did you know that they say you should never stay up late during Holy Week? That's what they say. And in this episode, you'll find out why. So are you ready? 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 It's about forgetting everything for the next half hour. It's time to let yourself be carried away by the following stories of the night. Very good evening, Uriel. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sofia, and I'm from Colombia. What I'm going to tell you happened 4 years ago during Holy Week. My parents and I took advantage of the days off to go visit my grandmother, who lives in a small town. She lived in the house that had belonged to her father, my great-grandfather. The house was old, big, and at night it became completely dark. The house and small town would go completely dark. They would remain in the darkness and completely silent. From the moment we arrived on that visit, I felt something different. I wouldn't know how to explain it well in words, but I didn't feel happy to be there like I always did. That first night, none of us were sleepy. We stayed up watching TV until around midnight. I even remember we joked about something many people say during those days. That during Holy Week, you should never ever stay up late. Well, we did it anyway, and it was a bad idea. In the end, we went to sleep. The room we were in had a small window. The glass was old, broken in one corner, leaving a gap where you could see outside and the wind would come in. That night it was cold, much more than usual. It must have been almost 3 in the morning when I woke up. My parents were talking in low voices. I asked them what was going on. My dad looked at me and said, "Didn't you hear the noises?" I told him no. Then he told us that he had been hearing footsteps on the roof for a while. At first, he thought it was a cat walking on the tiles, which is normal in that kind of house. But the footsteps started to sound heavier, way too heavy, as if it wasn't an animal. After a moment, the noises stopped. He thought it was over, but then he heard something else. A creak. This time it wasn't from the ceiling, but from the hallway. He thought my grandmother got up to use the bathroom, but saw no one when he looked. He tried not to pay attention to it, but a little later he heard a loud bang. The door of the room next to the living room had closed. That room was always kept closed. My great-grandfather's things were in there. No one went in. My dad thought he could see someone inside the house and got up to check. He walked down the hallway, opened doors, but didn't find anyone. He returned to the room, but none of us could sleep peacefully again. A while passed in silence, until another bang was heard, this time downstairs. The front gate had also slammed shut. This didn't make sense because that gate was always secured with a padlock from the inside. My dad wrote to my grandma to ask her if she had gotten up. She said no, but that she was going to check. A few minutes later, she replied the gate was still closed and padlocked. After that, no one tried to sleep again. The silence in the house became unbearable. And then the worst began. Thank you. Scratching sounds could be heard on the hallway doors, as if something was slowly dragging its nails across the wood. No one said anything until they knocked on our door. We stayed completely still. The sound came back after a few seconds. My dad thought it was my grandma and went to open the door. While he was walking toward the door, I looked through the small broken hole in the window. There was something there, a dark silhouette. The only thing that made me realize it wasn't just a shadow was that I could see a pair of eyes. It was completely still, right in front of the window, way too close, like it was pressed up against the glass, waiting to see if my dad would open the door. I don't know how much time passed. I probably only saw it for a few seconds, but they felt really long. At that moment, my dad opened the door. The hallway was empty. There was nothing at the window anymore. I didn't say anything. I was really scared to say it. If I said it, I would make it real. The noises kept going for a while longer, until it started to get light. The next day, nobody wanted to talk about what happened to us. Someone said that maybe it was my great-grandfather, that he was still there in that house. But what my grandmother said was what got me thinking the most. That morning, when she went out to the entrance of the house, she found barefoot footprints on the ground. Footprints that went up to the window. Footprints that didn't belong to any of us. Since then, she, who was never afraid, left a lamp on in the hallway. She says she no longer likes seeing the house completely dark, and I never saw the house the same way again. Hello, Uriel. I would like this story to be anonymous, but you can call me Ruby. I grew up in the mountains of Puebla. We are a very big family, 2 brothers, and I'm the youngest. My dad left us when I was very little, so my mom worked all day and we took care of each other. As is often the case, being the youngest, I had to put up with a lot of jokes. Some of them couldn't even be called jokes anymore. One afternoon, I fell asleep in a room. My brothers, along with some neighbors, decided to pull one of those pranks on me. They hung a doll from the ceiling right above me. It was almost my size. They painted it red so it would look like blood. When I woke up, the first thing I saw was the doll hanging over me. I immediately burst into tears. I covered my face with the blanket, not understanding what was happening. I could only hear my siblings laughing outside, hiding. And then I felt someone sit down next to me. I felt a hand on my shoulder. I calmed down almost instantly. I'm not sure how to explain, but I stopped crying. I remember that whatever was there with me pulled me toward its chest without taking the blanket off my face. That's why I didn't see its face, but I opened my eyes. And through the blanket, I managed to see a white dress and long hair, black. She was a woman. She was just there at first and didn't say anything to me. Then I heard her voice, very soft. You are not alone. Don't be afraid. I will take care of you. He let go of me, stood up, and walked toward the door. He raised I uncovered my face and managed to see her leave. I saw her from behind. As soon as she left, My brothers came into the room laughing. They didn't bring the doll down. They arranged everything as if nothing had happened. I didn't say anything. I didn't tell them anything. But from that day on, I was never alone again. Over time, I realized it wasn't just a one-time thing. I saw her sometimes from afar, passing by the house through the yard. Even other people ended up seeing her, although no one really understood what she was. And something even stranger is that they said the others who saw her, that she looked exactly like me. Over the years, there were more sightings, more paranormal phenomena at home, and not just in that house. Some were even worse, but there was one that I have never been able to get out of my head. I was already working and I lived alone. One night I was coming home very late. There was no transportation, so I walked home. I was wearing headphones. I couldn't hear anything outside. Out of the corner of my eye, I started to notice that someone was walking on the other side of the street, parallel to me. I didn't turn around. I wasn't scared because I knew who it was. It was her again. I saw her often, so it didn't surprise me anymore. I kept walking until I reached a big avenue that I had to cross. There was no traffic light or bridge, so I waited for some cars to pass. That's when I felt her getting closer. I glanced over and saw her. She was coming toward me, but not walking. She was running, floating toward me very fast, as if she were about to lunge at me. I took a step back instinctively, and at that moment I felt a sharp blow to my body, as if something had pushed me hard. I fell backward a few meters into some bushes. My headphones came off. And then I heard the impact. A car crashed into a tree right in front of me. Everything happened in a matter of seconds. I got up as best I could, still confused. The driver got out of the car trembling. He kept saying over and over that something had crossed his path. Did you see it? Did you see it? Something flew across the road. What? The police arrived almost immediately. They asked me if I had seen anything. I told them no. I couldn't explain what had happened. But I did see her. I saw the woman. And to this day, I don't know what that was, because if that car hadn't pushed me, it would have run me over, but at the same time, she was the one who stepped out in front. The one who caused the whole accident. So I don't know if she saved me or if she almost killed me. My family, whenever that woman appeared, said she was some kind of ghostly double of mine. She was a demon trying to trick us by looking like me. And honestly speaking for myself, I even came to think that maybe that's what your guardian angel looks like. Exactly like you. In the 13 years since the accident, I saw her only once more. But it was just for a second. I saw her right when I was going through a very difficult time for me. Maybe she didn't leave and Zorro just doesn't let himself be seen. I keep thinking that she didn't want to scare me, and maybe my reaction somehow offended her or made her feel bad. My oldest son saw her once about 5 years ago. At my mother's house, he was playing with his phone when suddenly the power went out because of a storm. A storm that suddenly broke out. She got up to go look for Grandma, and as she passed by a room, she saw me sitting in the dark. But I wasn't in the house, and he knew that very well. The good thing is that it only happened once, and it has never appeared to him again. Before we finish, there's a community update. Something else happened a week ago, shortly after I wrote to you. My daughter, who is now 12 years old, told me that she has been having a recurring dream for a long time now. although she had never told me before. She said that in her dreams, a woman dressed in white always appears. To be clear, I've never discussed this subject with her or my other 2 children. I don't let them watch horror movies or similar things so they aren't influenced. However, she described to me in detail the same woman that I used to see. The only difference is that she only sees her in dreams. But it scares me that somehow at some point she might see her in real life. I told her that if at any moment she sees something like that while she's awake, she should let me know immediately. She is my only daughter, and I don't want that, whatever it is, to stick to her like it did to me. Thank you for continuing to listen, everyone. Today we're going to close the episode with a really interesting story because it takes us to an encounter with one of those legendary beings. For many people, for many communities in Mexico or in Latin America, they are completely real. They are part of the culture people live with every day. This is the story of a grandfather from the community, and we are heading to the Yucatán Peninsula to listen to it. I remind you that all the links you need to follow us on social media, check out the book, and send us your stories are in the description of this video. And for now, we continue with more stories tonight. Hello, Uriel. I would like this story to be anonymous. I'm from the state of Yucatán. This story I'm going to share with you didn't happen to me, but to my grandfather. He's now almost 80 years old and still tells it as if it happened yesterday. He dedicated himself to ranch work from a very young age, and one of the skills he picked up during that time was hunting. Next, the story my grandfather shared with me, and now I share it with you, in his own words. I was about 12 or 13 years old when all this happened. I learned to hunt from the age of 8 with my dad. He and I were the ones in charge of bringing meat home for the whole family. There were 10 of us, including my parents, and I was the oldest of all my siblings. So I had the responsibility of being the man of the house when my dad wasn't there, which was when he went to sell cattle. Back then, we didn't have trucks like today. We had to drive the cattle to other ranches, and sometimes that took days. On one of those trips my dad took in November, around the Day of the Dead, he was gone for almost a week, and it got to the point where we didn't have anything to eat. I didn't push my mom to let me go hunting, but as a good mother, she wouldn't let me. Even more so back then because of what people said. But there came a point when hunger was stronger, and she let me go. I went out hunting at nearly 4 in the afternoon, and my mom gave me her blessing, and she told me to plan on staying out until around 9 that night and come back to the ranch, even if I didn't have anything. I agreed so she wouldn't have to worry, and I left. I was walking, I guess, for a couple of hours, when I saw the tracks of a large deer heading down a clear trail, where there was a large abandoned pasture. I thought, it's early, I still have time. If I find it there, it won't be hard to hunt it. I went over there. I knew the paths perfectly, so it wasn't hard for me to get there. It's just that when I got to the area, it was already night. It was risky because if that huge animal was there, and I managed to hunt it, I would have to make 2 or maybe more trips to take everything back to the ranch. That was with the risk the coyotes might get to it before me. I reached the abandoned pasture and saw it there. A deer with 6 points on each side. It was an imposing animal, and honestly, I felt intimidated. But I was already there, and I couldn't leave my brothers and my mom without food. I didn't think about it and aimed at its chest, right at the level of the heart. I fired. The animal jumped and fell dead. When I saw that, I knelt and gave thanks. It didn't take me long to do that, but I noticed something different. Everything was silent after the shot. Not even the crickets or cicadas were making noise like when I arrived. Not even the fireflies were lighting up. Something was strange. I ignored it and decided to approach the animal. When I got to where I shot, it wasn't there. There was only a puddle of black coagulated blood. At that moment, I understood. I grabbed my things and got ready to head back to the ranch. I walked as fast as I could. I think I'd been walking for 2 hours already. It was almost time to head back like my mom had told me. I came to some tall brush with a path through the middle. I went in, and as I kept walking, the night kept getting darker and darker. My flashlight batteries were almost dead, and I had no spares, so I had to walk the rest of the way in the dark. I decided to turn off the flashlight and just guide myself by the little moonlight there was that night. I had walked about half a kilometer when I heard something on the side of the path, in the thick vegetation, as if a huge animal was there, as if a bull was striking its hoof against a stone on the ground. I just kept walking, but the sound was getting more and more frequent, louder and louder, as if it was walking right beside me. I got scared and picked up the pace. I started running. I used my flashlight to see where I was going, and I realized that thing kept following me. It seemed to gallop beside me. I turned around and saw it. It was the biggest and scariest thing I had ever seen in my life. It looked like a man, but it walked on all fours. It was supporting itself with its bony knuckles, and maybe that's why it sounded like it had hooves. It seemed to have no skin on its hands, just bones dripping with blood. And even though it moved quickly, I thought I saw that it had some kind of dark brown fur. I looked back at the road and that thing made a sound. It was like a snort or a screech. It hurt me because it was so loud. I covered my ears and kept running. That thing started running faster and faster, and suddenly it crossed the path. That's when I was able to estimate its size. It was easily as tall as me, but on all fours. I was already tall from a young age, maybe around 1.70 meters tall, and that thing was as tall as me. It crossed in front of me quickly, but I didn't want to stop. That was the only way I could go to get to the ranch, so I just kept running. The tears in my eyes were blocking my vision. Between that and the little light from my flashlight, I managed to recognize a path that would take me closer to the ranch. But I was going to have to cross over a cenote where there were many poisonous snakes. But that was the least dangerous option given the situation I was in. My body reacted on its own, and I went down that path. I had to cross over a fallen log when I reached the cenote, and that's what I did. I crossed it and saw the light from the ranch in the distance. I was already close, about 10 more minutes. I felt happy because I thought I was going to make it back, that I would go back home with my mom, with my brothers, but that thing caught up with me. I saw it in front of me. It stood in the middle of the road. It literally stood up on its 2 legs. I feel like it was easily about 8 feet tall or even more. I felt the blood draining from my body. And at that moment, I heard a gunshot. The birds started to sing. Birds that only sing during the day sang at that moment. I couldn't take it anymore. I don't remember anything else because I fainted. The next thing I remember is being at the foot of a Mayan altar with very small clay figures near me, next to a cenote. It was nighttime and a lady was speaking to someone I never saw. The lady's voice was normal, but the other one, the voice of that thing I couldn't see, resonated inside me. It was a very deep voice. I never saw where it came from. I never knew if I could compose myself and sit. The lady stopped talking. She smiled at me and said, "No, son, you are very lucky. Cacasbal wanted to take you. You made him angry and he was waiting for you." I didn't understand anything. That name didn't ring a bell for me, but it made me shudder when I heard it. The lady told me that she had been working with me for almost a week, during which I was practically unconscious, only having nightmares. My mom later told me what happened that first night. My brothers had just gone to bed and she went out to light a fire to heat some water. At that moment, a hummingbird flew close to her. A hummingbird. At night. She knew something wasn't right, so she went into the house, took my dad's shotgun, and went back outside. The horse and the dogs were very restless. The dogs started barking loudly toward the road, and in the distance she managed to see the light from my lamp, very faint but moving wildly, as if I was running out of control. She knew something was happening. She got on our horse like that, without a saddle, and came rushing toward me at full speed. As she got closer, she saw that there was something standing in front of me, something that wouldn't let me go on to the house. The horse balked as if refusing to go forward and threw her to the ground. She got up as best she could and shot at that thing. And it was at that moment that all the nearby birds began to sing. And the thing started making erratic movements, as if the sound of the birds was hurting it. It turned around and went into the woods. My mom, still scared, came closer to me, afraid that thing would come back. She lifted me and carried me to the ranch. My brothers were already awake and frantic because of the commotion and because they couldn't find my mom. They put me on a bed and undressed me. I was burning up with fever, and at times I would wake up screaming uncontrollably. She says that a couple of times I would sit up in bed without saying anything, that my eyes were just rolled back, and then I would go back to sleep. The next morning, she took me to the lady who helped me, the Ikshman. That's when she began explaining what happened. She told me that when they brought me, my mom and my brother came with me, and that I had a high fever. From the moment she saw me, she noticed that something wasn't right, that there was something inside me that really caught her attention, something that had attached itself to me, something evil and very strong. She told my mom she'd do everything possible to save me, but my condition was very serious. She asked her to leave me there with her so she could work on me better, so I wouldn't end up like that, crazy, like lost. When my mom and my brother stayed, there was a ritual to communicate with the Aluxes and understand what was happening to me. That's where, according to what they told me, she somehow saw everything. When she was able to see the being that was tormenting me, Cacasbal, something very evil, a demon of the jungle. She told me it was very powerful, that she had never come across it before, that she wouldn't be able to drive it away on her own. That's why she asked her son to gather feathers from daytime birds, the ones that sing at dawn, especially from the two-bird, because it was those birds that made it retreat that night. Even so, it wasn't enough. There was something he still didn't quite understand. Why had they sung at that moment? Then he started searching through my memories, and that's where he found something else. He told me that weeks before, I had hunted a deer that carried with it the tunic, the deer's stone. I was completely surprised when he told me that, because that stone is known as something very valuable and you're supposed to keep its existence a secret. It represents luck. I had done it. I didn't understand how he could know. She explained to me that this amulet was linked to the spirit of the owner of the forest, the Zip. When he found out that I had that amulet with me, he sent his son to get my mom, so she could bring him my hunting bag and the clothes I had worn that night. She didn't explain what it was for, but a few hours later my mom came back with everything. Then she told me she was going to do a stronger ritual and that she needed to take me to a cenote, to a place where she used to work with the Aluxes and that she considered sacred. When they took me there, she asked to be left alone with me. That's where it all started. She told me that she wrapped the amulet with a piece of my clothing and submerged it in the cenote for a while. While the cloth was soaking, she invoked the Alush that had accompanied her throughout her life, the one she considered the wisest, to guide its spirit to help me. They say that with its help, she managed to use the power of my amulet to perform a cleansing on me. Many hours passed, no one knows exactly how many, but when she finished, it was already night, and it was at that moment that I woke up. I didn't know what happened to my amulet for many years. I even thought they had kept it, until one day I ran into the son of the X-Men. He recognized me and came up to me. He told me many things about his mother and his family, and I did the same. During our conversation, he reminded me of that moment, and I started to wonder what happened to the amulet. He told me that when they finished the ritual, where the amulet had been, there was only white ash, that the lady cleansed my clothes with the ash from that amulet, and then she threw it into the cenote. I never heard about that entity again, and nothing else occurred. Today I'm almost 80 years old, and sometimes I still dream about Cacasbal, but it doesn't scare me as much anymore, because for years now, in my dreams, I'm accompanied by the X-Men. Thank you for reading, Uriel. I hope that someday this story appears on your channel so that people can hear it. A big hug and greetings to the Relatos de la Noche community. What?